So this question is discuss problems with the suggestion you made in 10D. Oh, I should have changed that. It should be 19, shouldn't it? That's probably caused some confusion. But basically, this question here. So whatever you suggest in here, you've got to discuss the problems with what you've said. So first off, flooding is quite unethical. So that's one point we can make. In terms of the operant conditioning, sweet might not be effective. What else have we got? Positively punished. It's probably not going to work. Systematic desensitisation requires a therapist, so that can be expensive. And if stops it early, that can make it worse. Right, and then we need some kind of, so reductionist would be good. Reliability. What else is there? Determinism. No, we don't want determinism because we won't be able to talk about that. Right, so the problem with this question when you answered it was you were making kind of AO1 points like requires a therapist, it's expensive, it might not work, it might be unethical, whatever, but there was no development on the points. There was very little context. So you couldn't really get all 6 marks because it just wasn't developed enough. It was not as in as much depth. So you need kind of a point that you can expand on and you can talk a little bit about. So you might want to, so it's problems, isn't it? So I mean, you might want to start off with a general point like if systematic desensitization was used, it may be a problem for Rob as it requires a therapist to guide him through the hierarchy of his fears and pair this with something relaxing. It would not be possible for Rob to do it himself as he would be too scared of the beans. Therefore, this means that it may be expensive, as it may take quite a few sessions before Rob is no longer scared of them. Also, if he was to withdraw early from the sessions, perhaps due to financial reasons, he will not be free from the fear. He will not be free from the fear, and it may possibly have been made worse. Therefore, it is not a useful way of managing Rob's phobia. So I've got usefulness in there, so I've got something to talk about there. The use of flooding would be incredibly unethical, as Rob would not be protected from harm, as he would suffer intense distress until he exhausted his anxiety response. However, this may be less of a problem if Rob gives his informed consent, as it would remove his phobia of beans. I should say baked beans, really. And be effective unless he withdraws early. The use of behaviourist techniques such as conditioning is reductionist, as it focuses on the component explanation, the component part of the stimulus response as an explanation for phobia of baked beans, in that it is learnt in this way. Therefore, the treatments. The use of behaviour techniques such as conditioning is reductions. It focuses on the component part of stimulus what's next place for phobia of baked beans, in that it is learnt in this way. Therefore, the treatments are potentially problematic. So we'll link back to the question, word of the question, as it doesn't consider other explanations for Rob's phobia, such as unconscious conflict in his unconscious mind, or negative automatic thoughts. And so therapy may be, in fact psychotherapy, may be a more effective treatment, as it considers other explanations and is holistic. Thus the suggestions are perhaps less valid in managing phobia. Now this is only 6 marks, so really, I mean, I've said expensive, so that was a point, and I've said making it worse, I've said not useful, and I've said unethical, not protected from harm, and reductionist. And I've put validity in there as well. So I reckon with all the kind of explanation and stuff like that, that would be quite a good answer. So I mean, really, you only need 2 problems discussed in detail for this answer, because it's 6 marks, so it's 3 marks for each problem, and you have to develop it further. If you want to put 3 in, that's probably better, just in case one of them's quite weak. So for example, the expensive one is a weak point, you know, talking about lengthy and like time consuming and expensive. The poor points because you can't develop them any further, you can't discuss the impact that has. I mean, in here you can a little bit, because you can say it might make it worse if he drops out because of financial reasons, so I've kind of expanded on that point there, but that's quite difficult to kind of think of when you're under pressure, so you'd have to prepare it before you went in. And also I've linked it to usefulness, so I've developed it, I've got that AO2 in there. Also we've mentioned unethical, I put protection from harm issue in, so again I've gone into more detail about it. And the behaviour techniques, I've brought a debate in, so bringing a debate in is always really good. Bringing issues in like usefulness and value is always really good. A lot of you were just making kind of general vague AO1 points, there wasn't much terminology in there, so you like losing a lot of marks to that question really.